Chapter 7 Sasquatch. Zatra stood on the prow of the naval vessel Lord Zagos had sent to retrieve him, and his package, and to immense shame, he was returning alone. They had found him in the cave, when no one was waiting on the beach, dragged him aboard, and set sail straight away for the Temple of Zagos. The ship's crew didn't know the full mission, only their part. But even they knew it had not gone to plan, even without Zatra explaining. The mood on the deck was sour. Soldier, your covert assignment in Nasquat is cancelled. Proceed to Ratzurk and retrieve the girl named Midia by any means necessary. La Fury, purple hair. The window of opportunity is about to close. Retrieval at Resutor Island in 18 hours. Do not fail. This is direct from Lord Zagos. And he had her in his grasp, and she escaped. He could not take the dishonor. This return trip was merely a formality. He had died on the floor of that cave, but he would do Lord Zagos the honor of taking his blade and ending his life. The shore was in view, and beyond it, a glorious temple to their lord. There was his seat of power. There, his seat of worship, the lord of all Sasquatch, his lord. And I failed him, he thought. The thought was not bitter or resigned. It was merely firm, precise, fact. What? He had failed, and he would gladly accept the consequences for his lord. He who had united the disparate tribes, who had raised them up from ignorance, who had given them purpose, who had shown them the touch of divinity, the power of the immortals. The ship docked, and begun to unload. A squad of soldiers was there to meet him and escort the prisoner. Instead, they escorted him to his lord's judgment. The Temple of Zagos was like a fortress, city, and place of worship all in one. Citizens, priests and priestesses, soldiers, generals, and administrators, all milled about the plaza running to and fro, all according to the vision of conquest that was promised to them, of true unity across Lennis. I failed your dream, Lord. There is no excuse. Zatra and the squad of soldiers were met at the rear of the temple by a tall, officious-looking Fi-Orla woman in long, tight-fitting robes, a priestess. Her forehead plating was polished to an immaculate black mirror. She wore black lipstick, too. Her voice was precise, firm, and low.
You are the soldier returning from his covert assignment in Nasquat, correct?
He leveled his eyes at her coolly.
I am.
Zatra waiting for the next question, the reveal of his failure, but it did not come.
Come. Lord Zagos will speak with you.
Zatra bowed his head.
All hail, Lord Zagos.
She mirrored him.
All hail, Lord Zagos.
His clawed feet went clack-clack across the polished tiles of the temple's inner halls. The priestess's feet were almost silent, but he could make out the faint sounds of skin slapping stone. He did not know the inner workings of the clergy, but it seemed part of their obeisance was to be barefoot. They stopped in front of a great metal door. Its surface was crisscrossed with faintly glowing lines of light, and to the side was some kind of device Zatra had never seen before. The priestess placed her hand upon it, and the door opened. She whispered to him,
Follow. Do not speak until addressed. Soldier.
Her soft padding footfalls led him into the darkness beyond the threshold. His clacking followed right behind. The room was dark, but he could tell from the sounds that it was vast. Hulking, unnatural shapes seemed to loom just barely out of sight, revealed only in shadowed silhouettes. Ahead of him, the priestess gently walked around what seemed to be some kind of half-dismantled mechanical arm. Now that he looked more closely at the ground, there were metal bits and things all over the place. He followed as reverently as he could. When they stood before a work table with someone half in shadow working on something, the priestess stopped. In some well-practiced, almost ritualistic way, she got on her knees, and bowed her head to the floor, making a soft clack as her polished forehead contacted the tile.
Lord Zagos, as you have requested, I have brought the soldier to you.
Realizing that this figure was indeed his lord, he quickly knelt on bended knee and averted his eyes. His lord answered,
"Very good. Priestess, you may go. However, when we are done, I want you and the other priestesses to clean up and sort the parts scattered all over the place. It's gotten a bit messy." "As you say, all hail Lord Zagos."
Zatra mimicked her half a heartbeat behind. Slowly, with reverence, the priestess returned to her feet, clasped her hands together, and quietly left the room. When the woman had left, there was a time of silence before his lord acknowledged him. Finally, there was a clank, as though a heavy metal object was put down, a sigh, and finally, his lord addressed him.
"What is your name, soldier?"
Zatra cleared his throat nervously.
"Zatra, my lord." Did you by chance take on that name in honor of me, or is it simply coincidence?" "I have forsaken my old name for you, my lord." I see,"
his lord murmured, sounding pleased.
"It is good to see such loyalty. Very good indeed. Stand, soldier Zatra."
Zatra lowered his head even further, relishing the pain in his body as he continued to hold this awkward position in obeisance of his lord.
"My lord, I cannot. I am not worthy. I have failed you. I have only returned to seek your judgment for my failure."
Quietly, and with great care, Zatra unsheathed his sword and laid it before him.
Yes, I figured that out when there wasn't a girl with you. Now, I don't like to repeat myself, so don't make me do it again. Stand." "Yes, lord,"
he blurted, and stood with all swiftness. Still he bowed his head. His lord sighed to himself.
"I suppose that's as good as I'll get. It will have to do."
His lord picked up the sword, looked at it idly, and then slid it home in Zatra's scabbard.
"Now, Zatra, if there is one thing I prize above all things, can you guess what it is?" "I could not guess, my lord."
Lord Zagos chuckled a little.
"Yes, I suppose that is asking a bit much. But above power, above success, what I cherish most is loyalty. True loyalty, mind you."
His eyes still averted, Zatra could hear that his lord had stood and was walking around the table.
"This continent was filled with sycophants, vipers, and fools before I came to power, and I cleaned them all away. There is no room for disloyalty in my empire."
His rage was like a bolt of lightning, there at full power in an instant and gone just as quickly.
"Anyway, I do not punish honest failure, Zatra. If I executed everyone who let me down at some point or another, I would rule a continent of ghosts. People are fine tools that can be molded and shaped and taught to succeed. It is not their fault that they break. It is the fault of the tool maker who applied them to the wrong task or shaped them poorly. But someone truly loyal is the finest tool indeed, and fine tools build the strongest empires, and strong empires mold the finest people."
His lord stood before him.
"Now, report, die."
Still unable to bring himself to look his lord in the eye, Zatra continued to lower his eyes in deference.
"Yes, my lord. That evening, when your messenger reached me, I immediately set off to Ratsurt. When I arrived, the town was in chaos, and I immediately saw what the message meant about window of opportunity. I didn't have the time to set up a proper ambush, so I tricked her into some place I could get her alone. I also cut the rope network line to sow a distraction and to make sure her options for escape were limited. The operation was successful, in that I was able to capture her, but in the chaos it seems we were spotted. We holed up in a well-hidden cave on the beach of Resutor Island, waiting for the appointed hour for the vessel. Just before the vessel arrived, a rescue party appeared."
He stopped to growl just a little under his breath and clench his fist. The memory of the way he had lost filled him with rage. He had been foolish, toying with the boy, and it had cost the whole mission.
They were almost dealt with, but in the confusion of battle, the girl was able to escape her bonds and surprise me from behind, ending the encounter. The crew of the vessel landed, found me, and we returned straight here, my lord. I cannot express the depths of my despair at failing you, my lord.
Zagos gave a quick pat on Zatra's shoulder, before turning to consider his words.
I appreciate both your honesty and your devotion, Soldier Zatra. We should get those burns of yours looked at. They look quite bad.
Zatra replied in a low voice.
No, my lord. I wish to keep them. They will remind me to not allow such mistakes to happen again. Indeed? You are very driven, and that, soldier, I understand. Very well. Zagos sounded impressed. As it so happens, getting the girl was simply a shortcut, a nice to have. And, considering the short notice, you did as well as you could with no backup. It was a good play that didn't pan out.
Softly walking towards his workbench, Zagos grabbed a book and held it up before him.
Now that I have this, our plans can finally proceed. I don't need Dahlgren anymore.
The next words of his lord set his blood on fire.
I will simply make my own.
Tucking the book under his arm, he walked past Zatra and bade him to follow. He of course followed, at a respectful distance.
What do you think of my machines?
Zatra had no idea how to respond, as he hadn't the foggiest clue about these new machines or what they did. He stammered.
They are very impressive, Lord Zagos.
Zagos's voice took on the most peculiar lilt.
I love machines because there is no question of loyalty. They simply do what they were made for, without question, without fail.
In the next instant, when they approached the door, his voice returned to the calm, measured voice. He could not be sure, but he could almost hear just the barest hint of menace, as well.
Take heart, Zatra. I have much grander plans for you. A new mission. And I want you to tell me about this rescue party. Spare no details. I want to hear everything.
Nasquat.
Now, close your eyes, Chesney, and listen only to the sound of my voice.
The bed beneath them creaked as they sat across from each other, legs crossed, in the silence of the evening. They had agreed to take the rest of the day to relax and calm down after their difficult day, and so purchased a night at the traveler's house.
Take deep breaths. In and out. In and out. All your problems are like black smoke leaking from your body. The fog in your mind is slowly clearing. With each new breath, your body is filling with purity. In and out. In and out. I'm going to fall asleep if I get any more pure. Chesney, focus. Sorry.
They had decided to make use of their time to try to teach one another, the spirits that they knew. As promised, Midia was going to try to teach Light, the spirit she knew best, to him. They sat together, in the dark, in silence, until their breathing matched each other, and all the world was gone from their perception. Now, all that existed was Chesney and Midia Ta.
The spirit of light, like all spirits, is a fundamental part of our universe. To light, there is no in-between, no transformation from here to there, or from this to that. When you see the light of a candle, you do not see it travel from the candle to your eye, or a page, or the wall. When it is there, it is all, always. When it is not, it is none, never. Can you feel it? That spark of understanding. Chesney?
In his mind's eye, Chesney felt like he was in a great circular chamber. About the chamber were 8 podiums, or desks, or seats, or tablets, or monoliths. Maybe all of those, and none of them. At 2 of those were presences, moving, shifting, communicating in a way he could not visualize. Another podium, or space, seemed conspicuously absent. He could feel, in a way, this was where light should be. But it was not there.
No. I'm sorry, but I don't feel anything. It's like I can feel a hollow inside me where it should be, but nothing else. Interesting. All right, let me try something. I am going to touch your hands, so do not be surprised. All right.
Chesney swallowed. his throat suddenly feeling a bit dry.
Yes, that's fine.
Medea had never done anything like this before. Honestly, the thought of teaching someone else how to use the spirit had never even occurred to her. She had always been the one, the protector of the village. There was never any discussion of spreading her knowledge, or a successor, or even anyone interested in becoming a spiritualist or trying to uncover the talent. Parts of her wondered if her life would have been a bit different if it had. She reached out and gently found Chesney's hands, feeling the warmth, the softness of them. How gentle they seemed, even knowing the things they've endured. Now is not the time to notice things like that, Medea.
Now, I'm going to gently induce a current between us. You're going to zap me. Chesney, focus. Sorry.
She imagined a circle. It began at her heart. The line of the shape coursed down her arm, into her hand, then into Chesney, his hand, then his arm, into his heart, across, into his arm, his hand, into Medea once more, and joining at her heart. And again, moving always, circling and circling.
Whoa, that feels weird. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Breathe, Chesney. Now, take it into yourself. Feel how it feels. Try to understand it. Can you feel anything now?
Medea opened her eyes to watch him. There was a duality to him, she thought. At times he seemed so fierce and determined, and others, so tired and defeated. Who was sitting before her right now? Was this the Chesney from before his school was destroyed? Would she ever find out who that was? His eyes scrunched up in concentration. I think he's trying too hard.
No, I don't feel anything in that space. It's like the spirits inside me don't even recognize that another spirit could be there. Like, nothing is at the door. I don't know how else to describe it.
How had her awakening of other spirits gone? She tried to think back, but it was all an incense-filled blur. Maybe it was impossible? Or maybe she was just a terrible teacher. Her hands withdrew. The current stopped.
I don't think it's going to work, Chesney.
He let out a long sigh.
I think you're right. Whatever those weird old guys do, I don't think we have this stuff. Do you want me to try teaching you, though, just in case? Maybe it's just me.
She got off the bed and stretched.
No, I don't really feel like it right now. I think I just want to read my book.
Walking over to her bed and bag, she fished around her few things she brought along, and found the familiar feeling cover. Dawnkeeper, her favorite comfort novel. She had read it so many times that the cover was dented and creased and scratched all over. She still remembered seeing the bookseller's stall, and the cover just calling to her. She begged and begged, but they couldn't afford it just then, and she was so sad, though she tried not to show it. When her birthday came around, though, and he handed her the book, she was so thrilled and excited she ran to her bed screaming in glee and devoured every word. Chesney's eyebrows shot up.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, go ahead.
He laid down on his bed and stared up at the ceiling, and in that time she focused on adjusting her pillow and blankets to be a bit more comfortable for reading.
Sansa really liked reading too.
She didn't miss the past tense.
Who was that? Just someone I knew at school. I feel like half the time I saw her, she had found some new book and was speeding through it during meals.
Her curiosity was piqued, though. She had always wanted to ask about the school, and on top of that, really learn what had happened at the Tower of Gabnid. Was now a good time? Would any time ever be the right time? Should she just keep her nose out of it entirely? She decided to take a chance.
If you don't mind, could you tell me what the school was like? To be honest, I've always wanted to go there. I understand, though, if that's a bit hard for you.
For a time, he was silent, and she wondered if she had just made a mistake bringing it up. But then he turned and asked,
You really want to know?
She smiled. and set aside her book.
Like, really? Well, sure. I don't mind. It will probably be good for me, too. Plus, I don't exactly have anything else to do. What do you want to know? Good question. I didn't think that far ahead. How about, what was it like to go there for the first time? No, wait. Actually, first, can you tell me about how you found out about you being a spiritualist? Oh, that's a funny story, actually. But I'll only tell you if you tell me yours after. Deal? Ugh, no. It's so embarrassing,
she said, laughing and covering her eyes. Chesney laughed.
Now you have to tell me. See, it was just my mom and me since I can remember. So the other fishermen would take me out from time to time to show me how to fish. Well, that day, I had totally ran out of the house without remembering to eat breakfast. Of course, I only noticed this when we were way out on the water. I can still remember Boris telling me how real men of the sea can conquer any hunger. Blah blah blah. So, here I am, in the back of the boat, just looking at this pile of fish with my stomach going crazy. And then I pick up this one fish, and I'm just staring at it like crazy. Just like, cook. Damn it! And wouldn't you know it, it actually starts to cook. No way! That's crazy. Oh, it gets crazier. So there I am, thinking like I have this power to grant wishes or something.
Medea raised an eyebrow and snorted.
Wishes?
Chesney sat up and threw up his hands.
Oh, I was so dumb. I had no idea what spiritualists were. It just wasn't a thing that ever came up. Wait, you didn't even know there was like magic and stuff? Nope. So I'm like going out of my mind, thinking about all the things I could do now, granting wishes and stuff, but of course I was so hungry, so I started eating the fish. Wish granting could come later, you see? But then I'm still hungry, especially after granting that wish, so I pick up another fish and I'm like, cook again.
Medea covered her mouth.
Oh no, I see where this is going.
Chesney laughed.
You think you do, but it gets so much worse. So, while I'm doing this whole cook and eat thing, Boris is completely oblivious. Until finally the smell of cooked fish confuses him enough to turn around and finds me having eaten half his catch. Flips out. He can't decide how mad he is. He's torn between being mad I ate half his catch already, and that he thinks I've been eating raw fish this whole time. And then, I do it. The big stupid.
Medea sits on the edge of her bed, grinning from ear to ear.
Oh no, what did you do? I think I'm invincible now. I can grant any wish I want. So, I point to Boris and say, I command you to forget all you have seen, and also not tell Mom.
Medea rolls over onto her side, laughing.
You didn't.
Chesney, shamefacedly shaking his head, continues.
Oh yeah, like I 100% believe it. So now, of course, Boris had finally settled on what kind of mad he is. And he rows us back to shore, and the whole town is there, because it's a small town and everyone sticks their noses into everything. And it's this huge thing, and eventually they figure out that I manifested a spirit connection to fire. You'd think I would have been super excited about being able to do magic, but I was more focused on how I wasn't all-powerful, and I had to work for Boris again to pay back for all the fish I ate. Then, shortly after that, Mom tells me they're shipping me off to the magic school.
Medea composed herself and picked herself up.
Oh wow, that's really funny, Chesney. I still can't believe you had no idea what spiritualists even were. So, what was it like going there for the first time?
Chesney smirked and wagged his finger.
Not until you tell me about how you first figured yours out. Don't think I didn't see you trying to pull a fast one on me.
Medea couldn't help but grab her pillow and bury her face in it to hide her embarrassment.
But it's the worst.
She sighed and put down the pillow, unable to stop from smiling.
Fine, I guess I owe you.
It's so nice to see him smile like that. Medea adjusted her seat and began.
To say that I was a sheltered child was a bit of an understatement. My parents, especially my dad, were always very protective of me. Not that I made it very easy on them. I was always running around, getting underfoot of everyone, asking so many questions.
Chesney smirked.
Nope. I can't see it. Shush you. I will throw this pillow at you. So, one day, when I was around 8, I think, I ran out to play with one of the other girls. Tuka. Tuka was my age, but had started to grow her beard, along with some of the other girls. Well, they were so proud of their little whiskers that they refused to play with me because I was a baby and I didn't have any. Aw, that's so mean.
Medea shrugged.
Yeah, I didn't take it very well either. I cried, and ran straight home, asking my mom when my beard was going to come in. Wait, your beard? I had told you it was embarrassing. I had no idea that I wasn't going to get one. Everyone I knew had one. So of course they sit me down and tell me that since I was Laffery, that meant I wasn't going to grow a beard. Well, of course, I just started crying, even more, and ran off by myself.
She sighed and looked away for a moment.
I feel really bad about this next part, even though I was just a kid and didn't mean it. See, it just so happened that when I ran away from home, a huge storm was rolling in. I was too stubborn to turn back, though, so instead I found someplace dry to hide, beside a tree.
Chesney sat up, concerned.
A tree? Are you serious? That's so dangerous, though. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking straight, but I was so sad and angry, and all I could think about was how much I wished I was just a dude like everyone else. All I kept doing was spinning in my head, thinking about how I just didn't want to be special, and I was so mad at Tuka. I started to scream and shout and kick and punch the tree, just getting soaked out there in the pouring rain. And then
Medea made a big punching motion.
Pow! I punched the tree one more time, envisioning Tuka's smug, whiskered face, and the tree explodes away from me. For real. Oh yeah, just it. Crumples. Bits of this tree fly everywhere. A massive thunderclap. The whole deal. So, I'm standing there in horror. Like, what have I done? What if that had been a person? I'm looking at my hand and I can see little arcs of lighting jumping all over it. And just then, my dad finds me. Now, I'm terrified. I'm scared he's mad I ran away, and that he just saw what I did and might be mad. And then I'm also scared of me. Like if I just get too close, he might explode too. So yeah, there was a lot more yelling and crying and running. Finally, he chases me down, and he's not scared of me. And he sits down in front of me and teaches me how to breathe, and how to calm down.
Medea had to stop for a second. The emotion of the moment really got to her.
I was so thankful for my dad that day. I hope he understands just how much I love him, especially for that moment.
In the next moment, the vulnerability was gone and something difficult to describe was there instead.
And, after that, he would meet with his friend Dakin and ask him to give me some private lessons. So, yeah, that's my story.
Of course, I was never actually allowed to attend the magic school. Chesney, having listened to the story, had a hard time forming words. He was incredibly touched, since the story was so much more emotionally charged than his had been.
That's a really, sad and sweet story. I can't imagine what it would have been like if I had found my power in such a tense, stressful time, all alone. Thanks for sharing that, Medea. Really? Oh, you're welcome.
She tried very hard to ignore how hot her cheeks felt in that moment.
Okay, so, you need to tell me about the school. Haha, okay, but how about we save it for our walk tomorrow? I'm pretty wiped out. I guess so. We had a pretty long day. But if you find another excuse, zap.
A little spark passed down her arm for emphasis.
Oh, I believe you.
After that, they both decided to turn in to their beds for the night. The traveler's house was quiet. Understandably, from the blocked road, they were the only guests. The proprietor was perplexed to say the least. Medea closed her eyes, and listened to the sound of her breathing for long minutes, but she just couldn't quite get to sleep. She shifted, and turned to Chesney, and whispered very softly,
"Are you awake?"
He turned his head.
"Yeah. What's wrong?"
It seemed so silly to be asking this, and now of all times, but now that she had started the conversation, it would be even more weird not to finish it.
"If you weren't mixed up in all this, what do you think you would have wanted to do? With your life, I mean."
He didn't respond at first. The longer the silence went on, the more foolish she felt for asking such a silly question in the middle of the night. He probably thinks I'm such an airhead. But part of the earlier conversation dislodged an old feeling, and it sat in her mind now like a burr. When he did reply, it was jerky, and full of pauses, like he was assembling the reply without even Raleigh knowing what the answer was.
"I think, if you asked me from before all this started, I would have told you I wanted to be the greatest spiritualist in the world." "And what about now?" I can't. Right now, I don't think I even have an answer to that question."
Medea settled back against her pillow.
"Sorry to bug you with the weird question. Good night, Chesney." "It's fine. Night."
Chesney curled over to sleep once more. After paying a silent prayer to Sophie, Medea turned over as well, and soon managed to fall asleep. The morning found them both with bags under their eyes, though Chesney seemed to outdo Medea's, but with the dawn they packed up and started their journey to the cave. Chesney turned to her.
"Any clue what's in there?"
Medea shrugged and shook her head.
"Not a clue."
A short set of switchbacks led them right to the cave mouth. It was large, more than big enough for a whole group of people to walk through. Just outside the cave mouth were dried and withered-looking lichens and slime molds baking on the rocks and decayed pillars that flanked the cave. If there was any writing on them, it was gone now. Wordlessly, Chesney called up a very small light from his hand, and stepped in.
"Well, hopefully these gross lichens are the only thing we need to worry about." What a weird way to get to Jerain. If it was just Tiger saying this was the way, I'd maybe doubt it, but that's what the proprietor said too. I feel like there should be a rope network there or something. Yeah, it seems really out of the way. Ah well, what can you do?
Once the darkness of the cave overtook them, the flora of the cave became stranger. Stalks of strange, pulsing biological matter clung to floor and ceiling alike. And instead of getting cool, it started to feel warmer.
"So, Chesney, what was school like? If we talk while we walk, it might distract me from these creepy things." "Well, like I said, I got shipped off to the school really quick after I found my ability. When I arrived, I hated it. There were so many buildings and rules, and we all had to sleep in the same room. One room for the girls, another for the boys. I was always getting lost, and felt really out of place. It seemed like everyone was already so good with their spirit, and I could barely even make something the size of a candle flame." "Really? I find that so hard to believe. You're practically a natural." "Well, maybe part of it was how alone I felt at the time. Then one day, Teo came and sat with me at lunch. He had these 2 dinner rolls, and he stuffed his cheeks with them and did this really funny impression of the headmaster. And I laughed so hard the milk I was drinking came out my nose and got all over him." "Oh, gross."
She laughed.
"Yeah, it was, and we got in trouble for it, but after that we were really good friends. He seemed like such a confident, popular kid, especially with the other Laffery girls. But when we were hanging out, it just felt like we were both goofballs." "Oh? Why did all the girls like him?" "Well, he just had this really interesting shade of green hair, and his eyebrows were like out to here." "Wait, he had big eyebrows at our age? I thought that was like an adult thing?"
Medea asked, self-consciously feeling her own. Chesney tilted his head, thinking back to his time at the school.
No. At least, I don't think so. Most of the other Lefuri had already had theirs grow out more or less. Just happened to be that tails were quite in at the time. Well, what about yours?
Medea asked, staring intently at his forehead. He quietly grumbled.
They'll grow in eventually. Geez.
Medea laughed in a sweet, placating way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. If it makes you feel any better, mine are just as short. I guess we are both a couple of weirdos.
Chesney looked at her.
Huh. I guess so. Wow. I never actually noticed they weren't long. I, think the look suits you.
Suddenly they both felt a bit hot and stared intently at the walls of the cave.
Okay, why is this cave so hot?
She asked, taking off her pack and shoving her cloak inside it.
Wait, you feel it too? I thought I was just going crazy.
Sweat was beading off his forehead.
Aren't caves supposed to be cold and stuff? The sea cave was. She asks like I'm an expert on caves. I don't know, I've only been in one. But yeah, I think so.
As they progressed through the tunnel, the warm air gradually got hotter and hotter. They took more drinks than they probably should have, but there was few other ways of escaping the heat.
Immortals, this cave needs to end soon.
Medea panted, her pace slowing considerably from the start.
No kidding. If it keeps up like this, I might pass out.
After another turn in the cave, they found a strange person looking worried by a set of carved stairs going down. Chesney tried to think back to his knowledge of the races of Nasquat. This person was very squat and round. His red skin was thick-looking, and really tough as well. His face was blunt, with a nose and mouth that looked more like a pushed-in snout than any face he had seen before. Just above his eyes were two great curling horns, and instead of hair, the head stretched into a long curve in a series of armored plates, almost like a series of bright yellow beetle shells. Wait a minute, this is a Gautam. As soon as the Gautam saw the pair, he looked surprised, and then moved to stand in their path. His voice was deep and gravely, like a bucket of rocks was trying to form words, and succeeding.
Whoa, whoa, you can't go down there. The evacuation is almost complete.
The pair shared a worried frown. Medea could see Chesney's eyes turn down just a little.
Evacuation?
She asked.
It's nuts. Just the other day, magma started bubbling up from below, and slowly started encroaching on the towns down there. Hagudo is already half buried. But we need to get past here. We're on our way to Jerain.
The squat man shook his head with a harrowed look in his eyes.
You two are just not getting it. It's like the end of the world down there. I don't even know if the path to Jerain isn't flooded right now. Seriously, this is your chance to turn back.
The pair shared another look. Medea offered.
Maybe if we hurry.
He sighed.
We don't have much choice. We have to try.
They started down the stairs with haste in their steps, the heat forgotten. The Gautam man staggered back, completely flabbergasted.
You kids have a death wish. Don't say I didn't warn you.
As they descended the stairs, the heat went from merely uncomfortable to my clothes might catch fire soon hot.
Chesney, I know the timing is bad, but it doesn't mean.
He sighed, but didn't slow his pace.
Yes, it does.
She growled.
Well, it still doesn't make it your fault, okay?
After a long pause, he settled on.
Fine, right.
She figured that was the best she was going to get. When they exited the cramped stairs, they stood high above a scene of horror. Hagudo was a town carved into the side of a cavern, with multiple tiers stacked on top of one another, and homes carved right into the rock. The city was almost deserted, and bubbling magma was closer than they ever could have imagined, almost bubbling over the edge of the tier just below them. Hagudo was being consumed, and their last hope for their journey was being devoured with it.